How were you first introduced to wine? Welcome to episode 1 of Wine Matters. And today my guest sitting next to me is Deborah Szabo, and we're talking all things how we fell in love with wine.
Yeah, we're talking about our wine journey. And so what's really interesting is I've been working with Wendy for about the last 6 years, and she still has trouble pronouncing my name.
Deb Szabo.
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 Yeah.
I said it. Welcome to the podcast Wine Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Laureti, the accidental winery owner of Saddlers Creek Wines. In this podcast, I invite you to join me as I share with you what I believe is the true meaning of loving wine, and that is to bring people together. I'm absolutely no wine expert, though I am a wine lover. I love to learn and explore all things wine, how it's made and how it is best enjoyed. What I've discovered along the way is the more I learn, is the more I enjoy and appreciate it. So I'd like to share with you what I've learned along the way, debuff some of the myths, but most importantly, I invite you along to learn with me. To support our learning, I'll be inviting way more knowledgeable people than myself to share their expertise, their love of wine, and why wine matters to them. I hope to introduce you to all the reasons to love wine and all the interesting and great people of the Hunter Valley and the greater wine community. So on that note, let's pour a glass of wine and talk wine matters. Cheers.
Now, this episode.
Well, don't even get me started on wine varietals, Deb, because, anyway, I'm the accidental winery owner and Deb is my accidental coach. So teaching me all the things along the way. So hence why she's here today with us. So Deb, I mentioned the accidental winery owner, like how I got here.
Yeah.
But let me know, where did you start to fall in love with wine?
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, before we start that, we do have some wine in front of us because the podcast is Wine Matters, of course. So
of course.
Can we talk about what we've actually got in our glass here first?
Well, this is our, of course, Saddlers Creek Wines, Hunter Valley Chardonnay, a delicious drop. 2022 version we've got here, honey.
How I fell in love with wine. I guess my journey started, I was a teenager, I guess, and my first wine was Lambrusco. I was introduced to.
That's what we all drank, wasn't it?
Yes. And, there was the cask wine, but then there was the bottle version. And I went for the bottle version, which was, more expensive and pretty fancy.
Of course.
And I was living in the tropics up in Port Douglas at the time, so you had to chill it down. I just enjoyed wine, I guess, and I just started, trying different wines. But I think for me, what took me to work in the wine industry was I worked in media for many years, and I remember sitting on the balcony on the Central Coast having a glass of wine going, I really want to do something I love. And I was like, what do I love? And I'm like, wine. So I ended up sending my resume out to pretty much every winery in the Hunter Valley until someone gave me a job, and that's where my wine journey began.
That's amazing. It's quite a contrast and the opposite to my wine journey.
Yeah.
My wine journey was, as a young person, what do you not so much back there. I mean, you just drank sweet wines until your palate changed, I think. And we still experience that now in the winery, don't we? A lot of younger people are introduced to more off-dry wines.
Yeah.
And takes a little while for their palate to
evolve,
to change.
Yeah.
But I didn't experience, I have to say, I did not, I don't feel like I actively moved into becoming a winery owner, and that's why I call myself the accidental winery owner. 8 years ago, I had no idea that I'd be sitting here and I'd have such a love of wine, and that's why I say wine matters, because over the 8 years, I've just really embraced the power of connection and how it brings people together.
Yeah.
And like I've said before, the ability, it is very true, the more you learn, the more you love it and the more you appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the power of, being a winery. Yeah. How did I become a winery owner?
How did that happen, Wendy?
All I can say is, for years, I've been married for a long time, and my husband, he loved Saddlers Creek wines.
Yeah.
And we always had this wine turned up on the doorstep every few months, and that was it. It just turned up, we drank a wine, and we were busy bringing up kids and doing everything else. But as we went along, we just loved wine.
But hang on, the wine that was delivered to you was red wine.
All red wines, love.
But you were a white wine drinker.
I was a white wine drinker. he told me, Settlers don't really make white wines, Wendy. I'm sure they don't make white wines. I said, really?
Yeah.
A winery doesn't make white wines?
Yeah.
No, that's right. So I would get the quaffers from Dan Murphy's.
Really?
And he would have all these beautiful bluegrass wines, these beautiful reserve wines, all
This
red.
one.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Cab Sap's his favourite. And then, yeah, it wasn't until we literally became owners of the winery that he said, sit down and let me introduce you to all these beautiful white wines.
Yeah.
Because even then I was really very much a Sauv Blanc drinker. There was definitely a stigma about it. They all looked at me. But it was really where my knowledge was.
Yeah.
My knowledge of wine was very much, it was just an easy one. It was very much a drink now wine.
Yeah.
It was very much a, and it just went with anything. It was very easy every day. Like for me, it just was very easy. You could drink it by itself.
Yeah.
You know, on a Sunday afternoon, having
Wasn't complicated.
having a chat with friends, very uncomplicated.
Yeah.
However, I can barely go, like now I have such a love of wine. I've developed such a knowledge that whilst I can still enjoy a Sauv Blanc, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
I can. But yeah, now I have a bit more of a solid understanding of what wine goes with what and how to enjoy it best. And yeah, it's a different thing.
So when was the first time that you actually went, because you said that wine just came to your door, but when was the first time you actually visited a cellar door?
Well, even I have to say the first time I visited a cellar door was probably right back when I was in my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
And honestly, we did like 14 wineries in a day. Ridiculous.
Yeah, right.
Running in, running out.
In the Hunter Valley?
In the Hunter Valley, just trying things.
Yeah.
For the sake of trying things.
Sure.
And at the door we went. So it wasn't a great experience, and I didn't have that much interest in coming back. Even over the years, and I think that's one of the leading questions here is, you know, how comfortable are you coming up to wineries and discussing wines? Well, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I just had no knowledge and it was just going to be wine snobbery and you couldn't just walk in and enjoy it. Like, you know, are they going to ask me a question? Are they going to, I don't know, make me feel silly?
Yeah.
I suppose that fear of feeling like you're going to feel like you're silly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's off-putting. And I'm sure that's off-putting to a lot of people because I didn't have a lot of knowledge. I was drinking just basic whatever, you know what I mean?
And so when was later in your years, when was the one impactful cellar door tasting that you remember since?
Well, I would say it's Cellar Street Wines.
Yeah. It
would be Cellar Street
So then
Wines.
you, as a wine club member, then you finally came up and did a tasting?
We came up, yes. We came look, we didn't go to wine dinners. We were members for 10 years before we bought the winery.
Yeah.
Probably 11 years. We didn't go to many events. We didn't do any of that things. And that was really around that fear of, we just like wine. We like drinking it. We don't know a lot about wine. And hence, again, why.
And so did you feel at that stage that you needed to attend, like in order to attend a wine dinner, you felt like you needed to know wine, otherwise you'd be caught out of like.
Yes. That's one, and that's probably our biggest lesson learned, is, you know, because of course we've bought a winery and then we've had to attend these wine dinners, and that was probably, we walk away and that is our biggest lesson learned, is that was just a absolute fallacy. Like, it was just not true.
No,
it just wasn't true. And that was really where I started to lean into the love of wine and understanding it and that connection. And what I've really learned is that wine is about just bringing people together that are just looking for a life balance.
So for you,
and looking for friendship and enjoyment, and that is my biggest love.
But you also had probably a different upbringing with Franco, your husband, being Italian heritage. So
we drank lots of bad wine being Italian heritage.
but exactly.
Lots of homemade wine.
Homemade wine.
Lots and lots.
There was
of
always wine on the dinner table.
Always wine. Like, my kids grew up with. It's quite a contrast. My Anglo side of the family, we would go to my great-grandparents and we would have a tiny sip of beer in a glass of lemonade. Would go to the Italians and the kids would be having a tiny little bit of red wine in lemonade.
Very European.
Very European. But no, wine in the Italian culture is absolutely, it's part of their culture.
Yeah.
And I think it's very much about for the Italian culture, it's very much about gratitude and celebrating the end of a day, joy, sitting around the table, being thankful for the food, being thankful for everyone to be sitting at the table.
Yeah.
And it's a moment of gratitude, and it's a cheers. It's not about overindulgence or anything. It's really about that enjoyment of wine with food and gratitude for what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
And that was very much brought up. Yeah. So that's the love of wine without the love of
the wine.
And then I've taken that and then grown to love wine, because now I've introduced to really beautiful wines, and it's a whole different level. So it's been an interesting journey. I'm very grateful for the journey. But honestly, 8 years ago, to think that I'd be sitting here thinking I'm a winery owner and managing a winery and understanding the intricacies of the farming, the production,
because you're a farmer now, essentially,
I'm
as
a
well.
farmer.
You're a producer.
I'm a farmer.
Yeah.
I'm a wine. Yeah.
And one of the things for me, I guess I've always had this love of cooking, and I've had this love of food and dinner parties. I was doing dinner parties, in my late teens, and so that for me was always about bringing people to connect together around the table. So it was always a theme of like, let's do Italian food and drink Lambrusco, back then. And then it became, let's do seafood and a white wine. And it just became a theme. And I guess when I fell more and more in love with wine and started working in the wineries, it was like match made in heaven for me of going, I get to do food and wine together. But I know before I was working in wineries, is I went to a winery and I was in a group tasting like you, and we were taken into the members' room at actually it was Tyrrell's private bin room, and Murray Flash, they used to call him, he was like their Scotty. He was their Scotty, and he knew everything about wine. He taught so many people about wine. And I remember back then, like, I love Chardonnay. Anyone that knows me knows I love a Chardonnay. But I remember him talking about Chardonnay and how it was made and how it was matured in an oak barrel and things. And I was fascinated. And I remember walking away going, wow, I really appreciate that wine so much more after learning how it was made with the oak barrels and the maturation and things. And so for us, I guess, working together, that was our mission of how can we, bring community together, bring people together and connect. Hence the reason why we're sitting here having this conversation. But also whenever we do a campaign together is how can we add value and educate people in a relaxed and non-intimidating,
non-snobbery,
non-intimidating way.
Because often, you talk about my best wine experience, and it was very much Sellers Creek wines, but there's been plenty of wine experiences I've had where we've gone to different places, and it's almost like you're walking into that Prada store or
that's a really good way to describe that, actually.
Like, can I really walk in and have a look? Are they going to look at me like almost
that.
like the guard at the door? It's almost like, well, who are these people walking in? And I think over the years, I really feel that's starting to break down, which is a really, really good thing.
It is a great thing.
It still exists a little bit.
I think it does too, because you've got to think about the person. If they've never been to a cellar door, often when they go to a cellar door, there's a big long driveway to get there, right? And then they get there and they look around, and that's why often I find people that if they're new to wine, novices to visiting cellar doors and things, they'll go to the big name places when there's lots of people there, because they can just slip in and out
and not be noticed and that is such a key thing, isn't it? But I suppose that's one of the things I want to support with trying to say, just push past that, because it doesn't exist that. And I think I've learned a lot that was a story I played in my head. That was my inner feeling. And I can push through on that, because really often the other person on the other side is very accommodating.
They want to share knowledge about the wine.
Knowledge. Occasionally you still come across a person that is
100%.
more about wanting to just share information and not wanting to listen. But I think the wine experience and the wine industry has shifted so much, where it is so accessible today and so welcoming to people. Because we want to share this love of wine, because it is an art. It really is an art. It's a craft. And the passion and the love, and, you know, and we talk about the heart and soul of people in the industry. And again, that's, you know, one of my loves, again, why I love wine so much, because there is so much heart and soul in it, and so much passion, and that ability to feel that, and that draws connection, and it draws a sense of belonging. And I think that's very much, especially, I know at Sadler's is one of the, I feel like that's a bit of our signature, something that we've been able to bring along to it, and to really introduce.
And I think Wine and Chill really helps with that as well, where people can just come, get a bottle of wine or a glass of wine and relax in the winery environment without having to feel like they know everything as well.
That's right. Yeah. Because I find there's lots of people that want to explore it, but they don't want to explore it feeling intimidated or being dictated their journey. That's another thing. One of the things we introduced from day one, you know, 8 years ago, was let them choose their own wines.
Because wine clubs have traditionally been, you get a mixed or a red or a white pack, and that's it.
We were wine club owners, and one of, you know, we were members for a long time, and one of the things that irked us, I mean, that's a privilege. I mean, if you can bring something along at a perspective and introduce that perspective and make a bit of a change and bring, like, that's amazing. And that's something that we have been able to do, and that's one of my biggest accomplishments, I think, is that we have changed the wine club to be about our members, not about us. It's not about what we want to put in the pack, it's about what they want in their pack. But I can feel that in the whole industry, it's just more and more take up, because people want to be in control, and people want to be in charge of their life, and not being dictated and told, and that you should like this or you should like that. At the end of the day,
we're not all explorers, right?
We're not, that's right.
You know, there are, if like someone like you, if you just got a delivery of wine that you love to drink without having to think about it, you're not there to explore, you just want to enjoy.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
I think you've made an incredible impact in, when I speak to members, when I speak to just people in general, of what you've created at Sadler's is definitely about breaking down those barriers, creating a welcoming environment, because that's the other thing, when people drive up that big scary driveway to Cellar Door and then they get greeted.
We don't have that big scary
driveway. We don't. We've got a short driveway. You just walk in, off you go. But you walk in and it's like when somebody goes, hello, yes, how can I help you? What are you here for? And it's like, I don't know. What am I here for?
A taste?
Yeah, it's like welcome. Here are the options to get you started. You can do this or this. You know.
Yeah, and that's how being
wine your way.
And I think that coming, you know, that is one, you know, coming into being a winery owner, and I call myself the accidental winery owner, because when we purchased the winery, I really had no intention of being involved in it.
Yeah.
In all honesty, there was
you had another business that you were full
that I was going to be involved in, and just the way it turned, and a few different life circumstances got in the way, and I found myself having to be up front and manage this winery to keep it going. And
you've done an amazing job, Wendy.
So it's challenged me.
Yeah.
But I think the winning formula there is having the perspective of a person that didn't. I think my lack of understanding of wine and my lack of understanding of the winery industry has absolutely been an asset and an opportunity, because I've been able to look at things from a different perspective, and
it also helped being a wine club member before to really understand what it was like to be on the other side of the fence.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Look, I think the biggest takeaway from today's catch up, I think, is just to share that, to debuff that sense of, you know, if you do feel like, just to come up and embrace it and enjoy it, and don't have any rules around what you should like or what you shouldn't like, but just lean in and try it and experience it. And if that one doesn't work for you, try the next one and try the next one. Just embrace it. Just enjoy it.
I think you should drink what you like, but if I can recommend anything, I recommend people explore, because there's so many different styles of how a wine. So we had a recent tasting about Pickpool, which is an alternate varietal.
How good was that?
And we had two other wineries involved. That was Mercer Wines and Horner
Wines.
And we had three completely different versions of that one variety.
That's
made
right.
three
one
different
vineyard,
ways.
one vineyard, one varietal. But three different winemakers' interpretation of how to best craft that wine to put on the table. I think one of Australia's best assets is that we don't have the restrictions. We make wine we can craft wines to be
Anything.
delicious.
Cheers, Wen.
Cheers.
Lovely, good chat.
Welcome. We look forward to seeing you in our next episode, where we will be talking all things sparkling.
Ooh.
Who doesn't love a sparkling?
Set time in the year.
So look forward to seeing you again. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us for Wine Matters.
Thank you. Cheers.